a lifestyle, that is habits. What kind of habits? Now, there's so many habits to talk about, which is beyond the scope of this webinar at least, but we could look into some major ones where we all kind of are going wrong. So this is what we need to educate the clients about, the diabetic people, that what works for them apart from food is sleep. Sleep is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And we are all compromising on sleep. It is like we can just, delay sleep each day, and we can even stay sleep deprived, and we feel there is nothing wrong. But there is a lot of things going wrong. When we are not sleeping properly, when we do not have a proper sleep quality and quantity, both, then we are kind of breaking our muscle mass, we're losing our bone density, we're spoiling our skin and hair health, we are even spoiling our mood for that fact, and all our resolutions of waking up in the morning to get fitter, to stay stronger, to exercise, or to eat properly, all of them go for a toss when our sleep is not good. It is during a good, powerful restorative sleep that the insulin and other hormones are all secreted well. And, there is a hormonal balance. It is the most vibrant way of balancing hormones. Hence, we should not be compromising our sleep. And sleep is right when it is before midnight. So we need to fix up our bedtime. Once the bedtime is fixed, you will see that automatically you're waking up at a fixed time in the morning also. And you don't need alarms to wake up in the morning. So all we need to do is make sure that we fix a good bedtime, follow a good sleep routine, and see the magic that it is working on our hormones. Instead, what are we doing? We are mindlessly scrolling on the gadgets. At times, yes, we could be caught up with work and we might be, delayed in our sleep, but that's not every day. Most of the time, we are scrolling mindlessly on gadgets, and that's the next point which we should be looking into. We need to reform our gadget usage. There is so much of gadget usage in everyone's profession. None of us can work without gadgets these days. We all are connected today over a gadget. So we need to be on the gadgets. That cannot be, stopped or cut down on. But what we can look into is the passive time that we are spending on gadgets. All the time that we are spending on social media and the series, Netflix and whatnot that has come up, and people are spending loads of time on that and compromising on sleep, on health and everything else, that needs to be looked upon. So gadget usage is something we need to be responsible about and make sure that we are, controlling the amount of gadget to be used. Next thing that we need to look into is to eat mindfully. Now, what do I mean by that? When we talk about food, when we talk about superfoods, everybody is ready to place them on their plates. But ingesting is one thing, and then digesting and assimilating it is another thing. And that happens when we eat in the right way. And that's why I say eat mindfully, which means that we need to make sure that we sit down. Every time we eat, we need to eat with all our senses. And that, of course, means that we need to cut out the gadgets when we sit down with our meals. We need to focus on the meals. We need to relish the meals. We need to enjoy the meals. And we need to make it a part which is, a joyful part of life. It should not be like it's a punishment. Oh, this is a food, that's something which I don't enjoy, but it's on my diet plan, so I should be eating it. We need to enjoy the food that's on plate. We need to have it with full focus and attention. And so with no gadgets. And then we need to chew it slowly. The more we chew the food, the better we digest it. The lesser enzymes, stomach acids, and insulin are produced when the food is well digested. And that again helps to stabilize the blood sugar. So these are things which we need to focus on along with the nutrient habits. And the last thing that I would like to talk about, apart from nutrition, is emotional health. We all know that the mind-gut relationship is very strong. So whatever is playing in the mind definitely affects the gut also, and how the food is going to get digested. So when we talk about emotions, we need to look into good relations. If we are continuously, in anger, frustration, or we are feeling sad or depressed, or for certain reasons we are always stressed and there's anxiety around us, then the hormones are again all imbalanced. The cortisol hormone or the stress hormone would always be high. It is supposed to be high naturally when we wake up in the morning, and through the day it is supposed to be at its peak, so that we can handle all the situations through the day. But if we are continuously in the flight and fight mode, then all the other hormones are all suppressed. Be it the insulin, be it the thyroid, be it the growth hormone, all of them are suppressed. So we need to make sure that we learn to manage stress. Stress cannot be thrown out of our lives, but we can make sure that we know how to handle it well. And there is where we need to look into some good breathing exercises, cultivate good hobbies, again, look for a time to be spent with nature. And these little things help us get better emotional health. We need to be accountable for ourselves. We need to be responsible for our own health. We need to, be there and take that responsibility instead of blaming others. And of course, we need to prioritize ourselves. We need to keep some self-love, which is not selfishness. When we are thinking about self-care, that is not counted as selfishness. It is that we need to prioritize ourselves over work, over relations. When we have eaten at the right time, when we have taken time to work out, when we have not compromised on sleep, then we are taking responsibility of our health. So each one of us should be accountable for that. And now coming to the nutrition strategies. Initially, we were talking about myths in diabetes, and there are, of course, numerous floating around. But before that, I would like to give some small tips regarding food, which would help each one manage their diabetes as well as their weight. When we talk about weight, I talk here about fat loss. It is not a number game. We are not talking about just reducing numbers. That can be reduced even when we fall sick. That can be reduced when our water mass decreases. That can be reduced when our muscle mass decreases. But here I'm talking about increasing the muscle strength and losing fat. And so when we get this advice that you need to lose weight, the first thing that comes to mind is, let me stop eating carbs. Carbohydrates are making me fat. Carbohydrates are increasing the insulin. And so off go the carbohydrates from the plates. But the truth is that it is just a trend. In reality, it is not helping us lose weight, nor is insulin the only hormone in the body. There are so many other hormones in the body which need the carbs. And there is no one particular food which we can say has carbs. But what we all target is the grains. We think that the grains are the biggest source of the carbohydrates, and hence the grains go off. So we are kind of cutting off one entire group from our food plan. And when we cut out this entire group, we are losing on the diversity, we are losing on the variety, we are not getting the vitamins, the minerals that we were supposed to get from that group. It is not just carbs. There were many amino acids, many vitamins, minerals, fibers that were coming from that. And in turn, what do we get? We get cravings. We are losing on the hormones like leptin. There is no feeling of satisfaction. We are again losing on ghrelin. We don't know when we are feeling hungry, when we are not. And all this is leading to cravings. We are not getting proper sleep also. And this cravings that again wants us to eat that. and then we call it a cheat meal, and then we feel guilty. So why not eat in a sustainable way? This kicking off carbs is not even sustainable, because after a few weeks, here I talk about the grains which are generally targeted as carbs and removed from plates. Secondly, when we talk about proteins, then we generally hear, when we hear the advice of weight loss, we also hear that we need high proteins. So we start piling up proteins on the plate. But what exactly high protein means? That we need to have protein in each meal of the day. It is not that we need to pile up only protein on the plate, be it non-veg source or be a vegetarian source. When there is too much of protein, the body becomes acidic. When there's too much of protein, it is not even used as protein. It is stored as fat. And it is not even used for the purpose that it wants to be, that is repairing and producing insulin. All that is not happening properly. So it is not just that we need to pile up on any group, nor do we have to cut out any group. Again, proteins work well when we have good fats. But there we again are thinking of cutting out fats. We believe that fats are making it fat. So we are cutting off fats when we think of fat loss, but the good fats, especially the good ghee, it is needed, because when we add ghee to the meals, it promotes the hormone GLP-1, which is, helping the stomach emptying. It slows down the stomach emptying, and that reduces the spike in sugar levels. So when this happens, the sugar levels start getting stabilized. And again, when we think of refined foods, the foods which have high glycemic index, we just kind of plan to cut them out also. But like, for example, maida, that is a very, very refined processed food. It is a refined version of wheat. And we all want to cut it out because we believe that it has got we know that it has high glycemic index and it would spike the sugar levels. But our traditional wisdom shows that when we add ghee to this refined stuff and make the savories by adding ghee, the savories or sweets, whatever may, then the glycemic load is reduced. So ghee is that good fat which is helping reduce the glycemic load of the food. And there are other good fats which need to be added, which are not the refined oils, but the oils coming from seeds, the cold pressed oils, which come from the seeds, which are rich in omega-3, which are the good fats, contain the essential fats, and which help maintain the sugar levels again. And they're providing the right kind of nourishment to the cells also. The next thing that we know is that we need to add a lot of fibers. So that, it gives the bulk and we don't feel very hungry, and we again eat less and lose weight. So to control our portion sizes, we need to add fibers. But again, here we need to understand that when we talk fibers, we're not talking about bowls of raw vegetables, salads, and green juices, because too much of excess fiber also interrupts with the mineral absorption. Now, when there is too much fiber in our food, then minerals like zinc are not getting absorbed. And zinc is an integral part of IDE, which is insulin destructing enzyme. And when this goes low, again, the insulin balance goes off. And we see problems like the insulin is out of control, and we see problems in hyperinsulinemia. And this is happening because, we are just adding excess of something which is good. So whether it is good or not, we should not be having anything in excess. Fibers need to come, but fibers need to come in wholesome ways. The grains which we were cutting out, they are a good source of fibers. And the vegetables, when they're cooked, are great sources of fibers. But not the huge bowls of raw vegetables or raw salads. They would be creating trouble in absorption. Again, when we talk about rice, we talk about brown rice, which is a fiber which contains some fibers which is difficult for the body to digest. So these kind of excess fibers is not what we need, not mindless addition of fibers, but we also need to make sure that we are cutting down on refined food, excess sugars, artificial sugars, refined, packaged, processed food. They might be claiming that they're enriched with fibers, but that is not the kind of fiber we are looking for. That is not that overload of fiber, because with that fiber comes in loads of trans fats, loads of artificial sweeteners, and literally zero nutrients. So this is the kind of food we need to cut down on, and we need to make sure that we are getting the wholesome food on the plate. Now, when I initially also said that when we go for walks, then we generally go on an empty stomach, or the other way of starting our day is generally with a tea or coffee. When a person is diabetic and after the entire night's fasting, the first thing that if we put in the body is a stimulant, then it is not going to help stabilize the blood sugar levels. So we need to make sure that we start the day right. And how do we start the day right? When we start the day with a fresh fruit or with some soaked dry fruits. That is what is going to help stabilize sugar, because it has been on a fasting mode since for quite some hours. And that is what is going to reduce the cravings through the day also. To make sure that we start our day right. And the next important thing that we need to keep in mind is our meal timings. A diabetic person cannot have long gaps, cannot keep long gaps between meals. We always advise them to carry some sweets like a chocolate or something, so that if the sugar levels fall very low, they should have it in emergency. But why come to this emergency? They should make sure that they're eating in some gaps, like 2.5 hours, and not keep very long gaps. When there is a long gap between meals, then one thing, we tend to take a very large meal because we are very hungry. So there is a big spike in sugar levels, and then there is a lot of insulin to be produced to bring the sugar levels low again. This spike and this excess production of insulin also initiates lipogenesis, which is storage of fat. And so instead of burning fat, we are storing fat. Again, when the pancreas are continuously in this mode of, excess insulin secretion, then they also start getting a layer of fat around them, and they start suffocating. And that is when they are unable to produce insulin properly. So these meal gaps need to be reduced. For a diabetic person, it's a good time to eat their breakfast within 90 minutes of waking up. Their lunch should be somewhere between 11 to 1 o'clock. And there should be definitely a meal planned for the evening before dinner, because we cannot keep a very long gap between the lunch and dinner. And that meal also cannot be just replaced by tea, which kind of kills the hunger. So again, a small meal can be there, but a meal which has adequate proteins. So for example, if I need to recommend a meal here, it could just be a handful of boiled peanuts, which is an excellent source of amino acids and has good fibers, great vitamin Bs, and it has immense minerals along with it. So this kind of meal planning should be there for a diabetic person. Now, when all these things are managed on the plate, then we need to look into